This is part 5 of my project to build a replica Kar 98. Last time I started on the front end metal parts, and I made the rear sight. I'll continue along in this video, making the middle band and bayonet lug, as well as shaping the front end of the stock to fit them. These are the parts I'll be modifying. The bayonet lug is originally from my Gewehr 98. It came with a slight bend in it, and I had replaced it on my G98 with a new one. The middle band is from a Yugo VZ24. I went with this due to the handguard retainer on the rear, which is needed to make the Kar 98. Combined, the Kar 98 middle band and bayonet lug will look like this. I'm assuming the length of the band matches the Yugo band. However, the band on the Kar 98 is much taller. I'm also assuming it's slightly wider, just due to where it's placed on the stock. The middle band should be placed approximately here, at the step in the stock. The inside curve fits the barrel diameter forward of this point. However, on the Kar 98, that would leave too long of a handguard between it and the rear sight, and too short of a front end. It'll need to be moved back some. Looking at reference photos, the rear handguard should measure approximately 6 inches long. I'll mark it on the barrel. So the middle band will be placed approximately here. And since it will need to be moved back, it'll need to fit over the larger diameter of the barrel at this point. At least the rear loop will. I'll take apart the rifle to be able to show the fit better. The band fits over the barrel up until here, but once past this step, it doesn't fit tightly anymore. I'll need to reform the band so that it fits the barrel. But because it also needs to be taller and wider, what I'll do is cut this up into sections. The front loop will stay intact since it fits the barrel. The rear loop will need to be spread apart to fit. I'll actually need to cut it into left and right sections and insert some filler material in between. To increase the band's height, I'll need to cut across, then add filler and reattach the bottom. For the overall width, I can probably get away with spreading the bottom part out further. I'll be welding in this steel as filler. It's a bit thicker than the band, which will give me enough material to grind down. And as a backer for the welds, I made this bar of aluminum. The sides are curved to match the band. However, it's a bit wider, since the new band will need to be wider. What I'll do now is cut this band up. Here's the band all cut up. In order to ensure this goes back in the correct orientation, I marked the front of the lower section. I also beveled the edges in preparation for welding. But before I do that, I'll get these top pieces shaped. To do that, I'll use the barrel itself. The rear of these top pieces need to align with the mark on the barrel, but the curve is too tight to fit that spot. It's meant to fit ahead of the step down. In order for it to fit back here, I'll use pliers to squeeze it open slightly. It only opens up slightly. I'll use the other side to show. It's hard to tell, but there's a very slight gap in the middle of the curve. I'll form this side as well. Now with both top pieces fitting the barrel, I can get an idea of how thick of a filler piece is needed to join them. In the vise, I'll swap out the barreled action in exchange for a steel rod. Its diameter matches the width of the aluminum block. I'll use it to form the bottom piece of the band, the curve of which needs to be wider as well. Since this piece is much larger, I'll form a bit at a time, working back and forth. And that's a much better fit now. Now with the pieces formed, I can mock them up in order to get an idea of how thick of a piece of filler is needed to make the band's height match the measurement I got from the reference photos. Again, I'll use this steel to cut the filler pieces. I have it marked. Now to cut. Here's the filler pieces. I used the mill to bring them down to the correct height, and the grinder to bevel the edges. To weld, I'll use the aluminum to build the band around. It'll be tough to hold this all together, so I'll have to get creative. Here's the band all tacked together. I had to redo the top in order to get the curve to be a tight fit against the barrel. But as rough as this looks, it's the correct shape. On the aluminum block I've built this around, I've filed down this side slightly, since welding causes the metal to shrink. This way the band isn't too tight of a fit. Next, I'll fully weld everything together. Here's the middle band fully welded. I also added some weld to the areas that were nicked with the cutoff wheel. Next, I'll grind down the welds. Not all the way, I'm just removing the majority of the excess material. The band is looking a lot more like a band. While the ankle grinder is mostly a roughing tool, I was able to have enough control to grind down only the welds. However, in order to blend the welds with the rest of the band, I'll use some other tools that I can be more precise with. I'll mostly use the sanding drum, and then some files. For the inside, I'll use a Dremel. I'll use these interchangeably to shape the band the rest of the way. Here's the middle band. It still needs to be polished, and of course blued, but that will come later. You can see that I needed to go back and weld some gaps that appeared during grinding. But the outside is smooth, and it looks like one piece. The inside, not so much, but it's solid. I'll fit it on the barrel. This is approximately where it would fit. It's hard to tell, but it's even, straight up and down in relation to the barrel. I'm calling it complete at this point, but because the middle band was expanded, the bayonet lug is no longer a snug fit inside of it. What I'll need to do is remake the portion of it that fits inside the middle band. However, I won't cut it up. Instead, I'll use this flat bar. What I'll do is bend it into a U shape so that it fits inside like so. Off camera, I stripped off the mill scale. I also marked the center and a couple inches on either side. I'll use the arbor press to bend a slight curve onto the sides first. I made this bending jig. It's not pretty, but it should work. I had to modify my bending jig to get it bent this far, but to get a tighter bend, I'll have to form it by hand using this pipe. I'll use heat to make it easier to bend. It took some finessing, but this was the shape I was targeting. In order to get this fitting tightly inside the middle band, I intentionally made this oversized. What I'll do is grind this down until it fits within. But first, I need to cut off the bayonet lug in order to attach it to this. I'll also solve for the cleaning rod that will come much later. I have the bayonet lug prepped for welding. I'll first tack it, then check to make sure nothing moved and everything is aligned properly. Here's the bayonet lug fully welded up. Next, I'll grind down all of the excess weld and cut off the extra material. To get this to fit within the middle band, I'll grind down the outside until it's a snug fit. I'll be checking often along the way. Here's the completed bayonet lug. It's a snug fit within the middle band, but not too tight. The front will be sticking out just past flush. I still have more fine-tuning to do, but I've shown enough welding and grinding for now. I could have made these one piece from a solid block of steel, but I wanted to keep the look the same as with the Kar 98 and Gewehr 98 bands. This shows what I mean, with the small gaps that prove these are two pieces. Earlier, I mentioned the cleaning rod. The hole at the front here looks typical, but I welded inside a threaded receiver for a short cleaning rod. This will save me from having to bore a small hole deep within the stock for the cleaning rod. Instead, I'll make one that's only a few inches long. I'll make that later on in a different video. Next, I'll test the middle band and bayonet lug on the barrel. This shows the results of the taller band. The bayonet lug is placed away from the barrel. This allows for the thin strip of wood that makes up the forestock of the Kar 98, a defining feature of the carbine. But to allow room for that forestock, I need to expand the cutout at the front here. You can see that I also added material at the sides here. And I also added a sling loop on the middle band. I won't show it all, but it was a lot of welding, filing, and sanding to get it to this point. The last thing to do is to make provisions for how these will attach to the stock later on. Looking at reference pictures, there's one screw that goes across. It's centered in this middle section, but offset slightly to the rear. I'll mark where it's going. Then I can transfer that point to the other side. I'll drill these out separately. I drilled the right side bigger so that the screw can pass through. I'll then tap the left side. I made the screw quickly on the lathe, cutting the threads, turning it to diameter, and shaping the head. And with the screw completed, I'll add it to the middle band and bayonet lug. Here's the completed middle band and bayonet lug. I'm calling these complete, but that's for the video. In reality, I have a lot more work to do, grinding and polishing in order to get these parts ready for blue. It's a lot of tedious work, so I won't film it, but later on, I will finish all the parts I'm making in one video. As for these parts, I'm happy with how they turned out. It took a lot of work to get them to this point. Cutting, welding, grinding, and sanding. Are they perfect? No, but they'll look better once polished and finished. I know what some of you out there are thinking. Would it have been easier to make these parts from scratch? I'm not sure. It certainly would result in some cleaner looking parts, but it would have been a lot of work to get them to the shape needed. Maybe the same amount of work that went into these, or more. That's all I have for this video. It's gone on long enough. I had planned on fitting these to the stock. However, I think I'll push that out until the next video. That will allow me to shape the forend and maybe make a handguard. That's the plan for now. Thank you for following along on this project, and thanks for watching.